Hi guys, before we start this video, so I'm wearing this limited edition t-shirt from Elevate Barbell Club. It's basically the mascot trying to, fighting COVID-19. So I think it's a great shirt, it's a great fit as well, makes me look, pretty jacked. So if you're interested, just contact them on their Instagram and just DM them and say that you'd like to purchase a shirt. Or alternatively, you can also just click the link in the description and you can just order the t-shirt straight from the link. Anyway, going into this week's video, we're talking about deadlifts, and I can say that 90% of deadlifts are made or broken through this one cue alone. If you're interested, don't go away. Hi guys, my name is JJ from Technique Matters. So this week we're talking about pulling the slack for the deadlift. I think a big misconception that people have is that they don't really know how to pull the slack correctly and use the bar to tension and really use their whole body to be able to really pull the slack, as well as be able to transfer that into the lift itself. So what we're trying to do today is actually teach you how to use the bar to leverage yourself into the best position so that you can transfer all of your force efficiently into the barbell, which will then help you have the best deadlift that you can possibly come up with. The way that we like to do things here at Technique Matters is base our technical guidance on a principle. So the principle is basically how do you use the bar itself to create the most tension in your upper body as well as your lower body so that you can maximize force transfer into the bar. So basically, a lot of people like to overcomplicate things and think about pulling slack differently for conventional and sumo. Whereas here at Technique Matters, we just like to simplify it so that it's something that you can use regardless of the style of deadlift that you pull. What we believe is actually the idea and the principle is actually the same. The only difference is how it's actually being done. Right, so you can still use the same principles when you approach different styles of the deadlift. So what we're going to show you now is how to do a few variations of the slack pull in a static as well as a dynamic manner. So we'll show you for the conventional first, and what we're doing is basically in a static slack pull for the conventional deadlift, you need to set up yourself in a way where your lower body is already in the right position. So once you've done that, you need to make sure that your arms are fully straight and then you are just basically trying to grab the barbell, right? So once you've done that, you will kind of flex your lats, and at that time you should feel that your arms have a lot of tension in them. Then you start using your legs to apply pressure to the floor. And if you're strong enough, by this point, you should feel that the weights have already slightly broken the floor. All you need to do now is actually just stand up. And what this actually looks like, when you start to pull, you will hear the bar click, and then that's how you know that it's time to go and it's time to just push with your legs and just stand up. So with a dynamic slack pull for the conventional deadlift, it's a lot easier to kind of explain, and it's a lot easier to sort of see, and you see a lot of people using this setup. What is happening here is basically the same concept. You're still trying to hear the bar click, and then instead of actually pushing down, you're bringing your hips forward, and as your shins meet the bar, you are going straight up. So in sequence, what this would look like would be in a stiff leg deadlift position, you'll be grabbing the bar, your arms will straighten up and your elbows will be locked, and then you will get your lats in a mix and then brace, and then you're just trying to tension your lower body this time. And what you're doing is you just bring your hips in to meet the bar, your shins touch, and then you have your quads, your hamstrings and your glutes loaded, and you just stand up. Regardless whether it's static or dynamic, the same principles apply for the sumo deadlift, right? So with a static pull for the sumo deadlift, you're literally trying to find that same position, set up your lower body, and then you're just reaching for the bar with your arms straight. And once you grab that, you're trying to use the bar to sort of find that click, that pull, and your arms are locked, and then you just kick the ground away. So the most important thing with a static pull, regardless of sumo or conventional, is that your hips have to already be in a pulling position. And with the dynamic slack pull for the sumo, it's literally the same thing. What you're trying to do is you're in a stiff leg position, you grab the bar, you lock your elbows, you flex your lats, and then you just bring your hips to meet the bar. And once your shins touch the bar, you're kicking straight up. So now that I've explained the principles of how to pull the slack correctly for conventional and sumo, I'll hand it over to Clinton now, who will help you to troubleshoot some of the issues that you face whilst doing this.
How's this shirt like? I'm recording. My shirt look good. Hey guys, it's me Clinton. Right now I'm going to show you some of the things that you will see to understand whether you are pulling the slack properly or not. Whether or not you are pulling conventional or sumo, one of the best ways to understand that you are maintaining the slack is when upon getting into your optimal position, whether or not you are pulling in a static way or a dynamic way, when you pull the slack, the bar should be bent. And when you are about to commit the pull, the bar should maintain that bent behavior throughout until you lock out. So if the bar starts to straighten out as you pull, that means that you have lost tension somewhere or another during the process of getting your hips into the right position. Alright, so right now I'm going to show you some of the common mistakes that we see as coaches if we know that you are not pulling the slack correctly. So let's start with the static pull. So in a conventional, if you are not pulling the slack properly, this will happen. So this is what we call jerking. Let's say you are set in a conventional position, most probably your hips will be not in optimal position, which means it's lower than usual. And from there, you won't be strong and there won't be any tension on the lower body. So what happens when you just think about grabbing and pulling, the grip and rip method, you will feel that there's a lot of tension against your shoulders and your arms, and you feel like the weight is crushing down and it's very sticky off the floor. So what happens when you pull this way is you will feel a very high amount of pressure against your whole body. Some will even feel the lower back because they are not braced in the right position and in the right manner. And then when you pull in this way, what happens is your hips will come up and only then the weights will come up. So this is a sign that you're wasting a lot of effort and energy trying to pull the slack and getting your body tensed up. Okay, so likewise for sumo, in a static position, if I were to set up without the thought of getting my hip in the right position and not pulling the slack off the bar, the same jerking behavior will happen. So likewise, what you will see in this illustration in a sumo setup is that I will sit my hips too low, okay, and then I will jerk the bar and try to snap my elbows in a locked position. And then what happens is I will feel a lot of load on my upper body as well as my lower back. So much effort has been wasted trying to get my hips back into the right position before I bring the weight up, before the weight can come off the floor. Another mistake that I spot for most of you guys, if you're not pulling the slack correctly, is when you're trying to create that wedging in movement incorrectly. So let's say if you are pulling in a dynamic way for conventional, first you are in a stiff leg position and you pull the slack, so you tense up the upper body, the bar is slightly bent, you heard the clicking sound. Next, instead of driving your hips through, you drive your hips down and try to knock your shin against the bar. So what happens when you do this is you lost the tension of the lower body. Even in fact, you lost the tension on the upper body when you bring the hips too low. And when you bring the hips too low and you knock the shin towards the bar, the tendency of having the bar rolling forward is very high. Regardless how much effort you have put in to try and keep the bar close to you by engaging the legs, the bar will still roll forward. Likewise, you have wasted so much energy trying to pull the bar backwards, trying to bring your hips back into a more optimal position before the weight comes off the floor. For sumo, I've seen a lot of sumo lifters being too aggressive in their wedging in, towards the extent where when they start wedging their hips forward, they wedge their hips down, they bring their shins forward so aggressively that they knock the bar forward and then waste so much energy trying to bring the position back and then move the bar weight up. This is quite a common mistake for sumo lifters because we always have the assumption that I want to try to be as upright as possible. Well, to be honest, being as upright as possible, the factors you need to consider is not about driving your hips down. Instead, you want to think about how do I increase the mobility and the engagement of the glute medius so that I can drive the hips through. So the hips doesn't go down, it goes forward. So now that you have seen the things that you should not do when trying to pull the slack, I'm going to show you some of the movement exercises to help you understand the concept of pulling the slack. So once again, the principle is I want to use the weight of the bar, whichever weight you're using, and then create tension for our upper and as well as our lower body. Basically what you want to do, as the illustration has suggested, you want to set up in this manner. So what you will have is 2 kettlebells and 1 PVC pipe. Alright, if you don't have a kettlebell, you can just practice it with a bar. But the whole intention of it is to understand how much gap you need to have between your shin and the bar. It's very important to know how much gap you need to leave in between them so that when you wedge your hips in and when your hips are in the right position, you're not trying to knock the bar forward or the bar is not too far away from you. So how to perform this exercise is very simple. First of all, get into a stiff leg position. Lift up the kettlebell first, and then the kettlebell will be off the floor. What you want to do is to bring your hips forward and try to let your shin meet the PVC pipe. So while doing so, the kettlebell cannot move at all. Once again, stiff leg position, get the kettlebell off the floor, bring your hips forward, let the shin touch the PVC pipe, and then you stand up from there. When you're trying to create this maneuver, you will realize that, hey, actually I'm tensioning up my whole body and I can feel a lot of awareness on my lower body as well. This setup is applicable for sumo lifters as well, so all you need to do is to do the same setup as how the video has suggested. Okay, so it's pretty self-explanatory. What you want to do instead of closing up your stance and the kettlebell outside, now the kettlebell is in between your legs and you're more in a sumo stance position. So you're trying to create the same movement, get the kettlebell in a stiff leg position off the floor, maintain the kettlebell positioning at all times, and try to create that movement pattern of driving your hips forward instead of going down. And when you try and do that, you will realize that, hey, my hips can actually maintain in a higher position, my hips won't go down, and when the shin meets the bar, which is the PVC pipe, you are in an optimal position. You will know that you're in an optimal position when you can feel all the tension on the lower body, especially your quads for sumo. Okay, alright guys, and there you have it. I hope after this video you will get to understand properly how to pull the slack. Anyway, if you find this video useful, feel free to share it to those in need. Until then, I will see you again. Goodbye.